Hey class, this is Mr. Reed. I'm going to be going over Unit 6 of the Blueprint book today. Unit 6 covers structural shapes. Every time you build something out of steel, it's going to be built out of a certain number of different structural shapes that they cast. A steel manufacturer has molds that it casts steel in. They melt it down and then they cast it into a solid piece. And different types, examples of that, if you flip to page 62, 63, I believe 64, 65, it shows you many different structural shapes. It starts out with square bar. A lot of people say square stock. Then it goes to sheet, strip or band, plate. I want to go over all that with you. Now we're going to start by designating the difference between hot rolled and cold rolled steel. And that's the way this is cast. Now hot rolled steel is slightly oversized with rounded corners. That's generally what we're going to buy here in the program for you to weld on flat bar, T-joints and things like that. It's hot rolled steel. But you can buy cold rolled steel. Cold rolled is more precise and it has square corners. You know, that really stands out when you're buying square stock. You can see the edges better. Now, I want you to turn to page 62 and we're going to go over some of these structural shapes. Like I said, first we have square stock and rectangular bar. So how these are designated, if you call a steel distributor like KGS or Loftus Steel and you want to order a certain type of metal for any given project, you need to word this in a certain way. And that's what this unit is all about. It tells you size specifications and how you word it. So generally, if you'll notice, for square stock, you have thickness, width, length. So your thickness is going to be from edge to edge, your width is going to be from edge to edge, and then the length of the piece that you're going to get. So if I wanted a 1-inch square stock, I would say either 1-inch square when I called them, or I would say 1 by 1 by 20 feet. And that lets them know it's 1 inch wide, 1 inch tall, and then 20 feet long. Alright, now moving on to sheet metal. Now we discussed in Unit 5 how sheet metal is 3/16 or less. And generally they start going by something called a gauge. When you get down really thin, it's a different gauge. So how you specify sheet metal is gauge by width by length. If I needed 11 gauge sheet metal, a sheet of it, I would say 11 gauge by 4 feet wide by 8 feet long or 10 feet long, however I wanted my sheet. And the length is always going to be your last measurement in the size specification. Strip or band, if you've ever seen a bundle of pipe come and it has a little black strap around it, that's the strip or band that it's talking about. It's really thin metal and they just use it for, you know, the only thing I've seen it used for is keeping things together for logistics purposes. Alright, and then you have plate or flat bar. Plate or flat bar is indicated by the same formula, thickness, width, length. Round stock, your next shape, is going to go by diameter and length. If it's 1 inch round, it's going to be the diameter all the way across and then the length. So if I needed 1 inch round stock, I'd say a piece of 1 inch round, 20 feet long. You have half oval bar, hexagon bar, octagon bar. Now, I haven't seen a whole lot of that in the field as a pipe fitter. I didn't use a lot of that, but it is out there and it is available. And that's generally either going to be, the half oval bar is going to be thickness by width by length, but your hexagonal and octagonal bars are going to be the distance of the flats across. So if it's 1 inch, it'll be from 1 inch. It'll be 1 inch from one edge straight across to the other, and that's from flat to flat and by length. So if you need 1 inch hexagon bar, you tell them 1 inch hexagon by 20 feet long, and they'll know what you're talking about. Now moving on, we have angle iron, which is about the most common piece of metal you're going to use when you're fabricating something. And angle iron has legs on it. I'll show you what I'm talking about. If you have angle iron, it looks like this. It's kind of L-shaped. And this is going to be your leg. And that's how you specify. Yeah, that's how you specify the size of steel. It's width by thickness by length. So if this is 2 inches here, and this is 2 inches, I'm going to say I need a piece of 2 by 2, and this is the thickness here, by 1/8 by 20 feet long. So 2 by 2 by 1/8 by 20 is how you specify that. And you want to know what you're ordering so that you don't get the wrong stuff in, because it costs money to ship this stuff, and you definitely want to have the right material the first time. On page 64 you have T-bar. T-bar it has its own size specification, as does channel iron. Channel iron is very common. It's a strong structural shape. People build utility trailers, car hauling trailers out of it. It's really good to use, very versatile. Then you have ZBar. Again, the only thing I've seen that used for in my personal, in my career is, you know, like putting down bar grating or something for a mezzanine deck or something, and that kind of holds it in place. ZBar, you're not going to see a whole lot of that used either, but it has its own size specifications. And you guys, the size specifications is in blue. It's written in blue in this table in Unit 6. So if you ever need to order any of these structural shapes, you can kind of use that as a guideline. Guys, this blueprint book, it's good for now to get this knowledge right off the bat, but it's good to keep for future reference also. Alright, next you have S-beams and I-beams. Not a whole lot of difference there. The S-beam has a tapered web to it. An I-beam or an H-beam has straight edges for the web. And that's also a very common thing used when you're at this building I'm standing in. I guarantee you it has I-beams as your pillars, your columns. There's a column line, and you'll come to see a lot more of that as you get out in the field and start seeing how things are built. Iron workers and structural fitters, they'll be using I-beams quite a bit. Next you have square tubing, and tubing is like pipe. It's hollow on the inside, and if you order a piece of tubing, again, many uses for tubing. Handrails. You can use them for handrails. I've seen it used, you know, again on utility trailers. People build weight benches, all kind of stuff out of square tubing. And how you order that is width by depth by thickness by length. So it's kind of like your square stock, side by thickness and length. After that, the last structural shape we're going to cover is pipe and tubing. Now pipe thickness. In square tubing, the thickness is referring to how thick your walls are. You know, this right here, any given side, that's going to be your thickness. Now with pipe, it's pretty obvious. I'm not an artist, but your wall thickness is very important. And instead of calling it thickness, they use another term. They say schedule. Now your standard pipe is going to be schedule 40. That's going to be your standard size, but they make it thinner and they make it a lot thicker too. They make heavy wall pipe, extra heavy wall pipe, and that's schedule 80 or schedule 160. But they can go as thin as schedule 5. And you'll see that a lot on stainless pipe. Especially like tubing and things like that. In food processing plants and things, you have to have a really clean stainless weld with no pinholes, anything. It needs to be a super clean weld in the food industry. But the only other thing I really want to bring to your attention is inside diameter and outside diameter. Now piping, if I ordered a piece of 6-inch schedule 40, the size specification goes by the inside. Let me draw that pipe again. It goes inside diameter. So this is going to be 6 inches. And depending on the schedule or thickness of the walls, it'll give me a different OD. And all those sizes can be found in the appendix at the back of this blueprint book. If you can find it, it'll tell you how thick the wall is on any given schedule or any size pipe. But it goes by inside diameter. That doesn't change. The outside does. So it goes by inside diameter up to 12 inches. Now there's no such thing, or I'm not aware of it, but I don't believe there's anything, there's any 13-inch pipe out there. I don't think there is, I've never seen it. So I'm going to go ahead and say it's safe to say that from 14 and up, it goes by outside diameter when you're indicating size. So that's 14-inch and up. So you got inside diameter up to 12 inches, and from 14 inches up, it starts going by outside diameter. And again, wall thickness is indicated with the word schedule, schedule 40. So that's pretty much it for structural shapes. I'm trying to make these as short and sweet as I can, as to not waste your time. But if you have any questions, please contact me, your current instructor. Thank you.